Litvay. He is the founder and CEO of SETI, an international team of entrepreneurs, digital nomads, and consultants specializing in internationalization strategies with the purpose of sharing a vision of a world without borders. SETI is currently the largest portal on internationalization and flag theory in Portuguese, among other achievements. The company has already helped hundreds of clients obtain their legal and tax residencies in Paraguay. Let's hear it for Francisco.
Hello? Okay, all good? Cool. Hello everyone, my name is Francisco Litvay, nice to meet you. I have two promises for you regarding this presentation here. The bad one is that we're going to talk about taxes and bureaucracy and the legal side that I know a lot of you guys avoid for years when you become digital nomads, and I don't blame you, I did it myself. But the good promise is that if you listen through all over to the end, then you're probably going to save yourself hours of having to deal with this intense topic in the future. So, basically, they already gave the intro. My name is Francisco Litvay. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm a nomad already for 5 years, been to over 40 countries. I have dual citizenship, residency in Paraguay, Colombia, and Chile, bank accounts in over 6 different countries, 2 different companies incorporated worldwide, and I basically help our clients do the same thing, so internationalize their lives with relocation and international tax planning and achieve more freedom in their lives. And in this work, really, one ends up getting to think a lot about really what is freedom, because as nomads, we are a more freedom-loving group in general, I would say. Everybody's looking for their, location freedom, their, not having to be fixed anywhere, having your time freedom to explore life on a, Wednesday, go to a, boat cruise to the islands on weekdays, that kind of thing. But the answer really depends on who is asking. Because, for example, we can consider freedom to travel. This was the map from Safety Wing. I think maybe some of you used it during the COVID times, which countries were open and which ones were closed at each specific moment. That was an important freedom. But then we also have, for example, a lot of clients that are heavy on Bitcoin or crypto, and for them, the freedom to use and sell their cryptos is very important for their financial sovereignty. Then we have maybe the freedom to do business, right? This is the Index of Economic Freedom from the Heritage Foundation. Basically, like how easy it is to do business, open a local company, etc. And for those of us that are looking to do some entrepreneurship locally, this is a fundamental criteria. And of course, there's also the freedom from taxes. So this is a map of the world tax systems. Basically, green is the countries that don't have any income tax at all. Light blue are the ones that don't tax foreign income. Purple are the ones that tax you even if you don't live there, the citizenship-based taxation. And dark blue is the majority of the world where you pay taxes on your global income. And for a lot of nomads, this is an important part as well. And this ties into the actual topic of the presentation, which is how you can live free with flag theory. What is flag theory? I was already asked yesterday, even ahead of the presentation today. So, although the name is theory, it's actually a very practical concept. Flag theory is the idea that every different aspect of your life is a flag. And most people, they are born in a country, they have the residence in that country, their bank accounts in that country, their investments are in that country, maybe they open a company in that country as well. So their entire life is centered around a single jurisdiction. And for anyone that consumed any kind of investment content in their lives, you always hear, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. And maybe you apply it there so you don't invest everything in a single stock, but you forget to look at the macro of your own life. Right, you're still all in just one jurisdiction. So if something happens to that jurisdiction, if the country goes down for some reason, then you're going down with it. But the idea in flag theory is to plant these different flags across different countries where you're treated best and where you're treated best for that particular aspect. So maybe you were born in a country and you have that passport, but you get a residency of a country where you enjoy life more. And then you get a bank account in a country that is more stable, that has a better currency, that has a more efficient banking system. And then your company where you have more access to payment providers or where it's easier to reach different customers. So you plant these flags in different jurisdictions so that at the same time you're getting the benefits that other countries have, because no country does everything best. There's always benefits you can get in other countries, while at the same time diversifying yourself and reducing your dependency to just a single country. And we as nomads are in a perfect position to really use this, because we are already going to all these different places in the world and checking these places out and getting to know people in different places. And we can actually go visit the banks and the different places in the countries to check this out. So this is all about global diversification. Of course, the degree of difficulty here will depend on which flag we're talking about, right? So you can, for example, open a bank account in many fintechs around the world from your phone in 30 minutes, KYC check, that's it. Whereas, for example, to get a citizenship, often we're talking, a decade of living in a different country or a six-figure investment in a Caribbean island. So this, of course, will depend on the flag. But the main thing is, first of all, the choice of flag is interdependent and is always based on preferences. So usually I get asked, what is the best tax residency? I don't know. What do you want, right? Where do you want to live? Where do you have your business? Where are your customers? There's no individual, best. It's always whatever fits your personal preferences. And then, of course, this always interplays. So, for example, if you have a residency in the European Union, maybe it's not a good idea for your company to be in a country that is blacklisted as a tax haven by the EU, right? So maybe for someone that lives in Thailand, a company in Panama might work perfectly. But if you work from the EU, then okay, maybe not the best idea. Let's see a different place. So there's always interplaying. One choice you do impacts which other choices you're going to do in the future. So we can think of really any number of flags, any aspect of your life that you can consider as something relevant that could be, diversified can be a flag. So there is no fixed limit. Okay, if you can think, maybe where I'm going to have my data servers, where I'm going to, host my website, that can be a flag as well, right? Go to a country with high freedom of speech protections or good data protection laws. But the main ones that we're usually looking at and will make the most impact also on your travel freedom and your financial freedom are going to be these four. So your citizenship, so where you can get a passport, your residence, this one is mainly the one that defines your taxes, so where you actually live or where you pay your taxes. Then your company headquarters, and where you have your bank accounts. Now, digital nomadism is in a prime position, actually, to make use of flag theory and also to partially even live outside it, right? Because as a digital nomad, depending on where you come from, you also have the option of being a perpetual traveler and having no residence at all, right? Sometimes people ask, is this even possible? Is this even legal? Well, it is legal, but it is outside the system, right? Because no country has a way for you to be a non-resident anywhere. It's always you're either resident here or you're not. But depending on your country of origin, it may be possible that you exit a tax system and you stay without any residence at all. Of course, long-term, maybe not the most advisable, but especially short-term, while you're still deciding where you want to go, this can make a lot of sense. And this will depend primarily on how your country sees the tax exit, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But the main idea here is most countries in the world follow what is called the 183-day rule. So if you spend over 183 days in a 12-month time frame, you become a tax resident. So over 6 months in a year frame. So as long as you avoid that, as a nomad staying 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and you avoid what is called a center of vital interests, then you don't become a tax resident. What that really means depends on country to country. So for example, in Spain, if you have an underage child that is going to school in the country, immediate tax residency. Oh, you live here, like your child goes to school here. In some countries, having a property can mean that. In some countries, if most of your income comes from there, that can mean that. So you have to check individually. But usually, if you don't have a property, if you don't have a local business, and you're spending under 6 months, you're good to go. So basically, this means that you need at least 2 places to live per year, right? Let's say up to 6 months in one, up to 6 months in the other, and 2-3 days connection would already be good to actually be a nomad without any tax residence. And of course, remote income is usually the hardest part, but for us, it's granted as a baseline. So how do you actually get out of your tax residence? If you are still a tax resident in a tax hell like the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Canada, etc., then you have to follow these 4 simple steps. 90% is actually preparations. So, I have to sell a property before, or I have to close down my local business, or I have to move out. I have to organize, I don't know, where how I'm gonna do with my family. This is what's going to take 90% of the time, and also where most people stop. Okay, but once you have that figured out and you're actually ready to, cut the necessary ties, then we have the departure and the tax exit. And in some countries, this is inverted. So in some countries, you actually just leave, and then you tell them you left. In some of them, you have to, for example, prove that you're already paying taxes somewhere else before they let you go. Okay, so this is really case dependent. For example, in Germany and in my home country, Brazil, I can just tell them, I'm out, and then you're out. For Canada, for instance, or for Norway, then you have to prove to them that you're already paying taxes somewhere else before they accept your departure declaration. So we have to be strategic about this and see where you're from. Sometimes it makes sense to get a good tax residency before, just so they let you out, and then you become a more flexible nomad. And then, after all, enjoy. You can get a better tax treatment then. So going to that point of, where should I go? Which countries make sense? As a nomad, you have the privilege of being able to explore first and see where you like. But just to show a quick example of how many ways we can get to the same solution, let's assume you're a person that has a lot of crypto income or gains, and crypto is something important to you. So I want a crypto-friendly country. Well, here are 7 different ways in which we can achieve this objective, right? There are countries that do not tax crypto gains and don't tax really any capital gains at the private level, like Malta or Switzerland, so even like stock gains would be exempt, so that works. Some don't tax gains between cryptos, so for example, if you convert from Bitcoin to USDT, there is no tax, but if you cash out to fiat, there is, so for example, Poland or Romania. Then there are some countries that do not tax the gains after a retention period, so if it's like a holding instead of a short-term trade, then it's also 0 tax. Again, Croatia enters the list. There are countries that do not tax gains even at the business level, so both personal and corporate. Then there's some countries that not only don't tax the gains, but they don't tax the income because they either don't tax foreign income, like Panama, like Paraguay, very popular now, like Georgia. Countries that don't tax foreign income as long as it remains abroad. This was what Thailand got very popular for. As long as it's not remitted, it doesn't get taxed. But Ireland has that as well. Mauritius has that as well. And you have the green countries that I talked before that simply don't tax any income at all, like the UAE, which has gotten very popular also on that basis. But Francisco, I don't actually want to move. Let's say I live here in Greece and I'm very happy with my life in Greece. So do I just ignore everything you just said now? No, you don't have to, because you still don't have to depend 100% in one country. So for example, you can have a compliance residence for some purposes. Nowadays, for example, it might make sense to have an EU residence and a non-EU residence for some financial reasons, right? Some products are excluded for people that are resident in the EU. Some are not, so you can still have access to some different things with non-EU residents. And Paraguay, Panama, and UAE are very interesting in this sense because they're 3 countries that let you keep the residence without you actually having to live there. That's usually the main thing, like I don't actually want to live in these countries. You can still have a foreign company, either for like an international business. Let's say you have an American audience, you want to have access to American payment methods, Zelle, etc. Then you can have a U.S. entity, or you can still have a holding company to protect your assets, like in the Caribbean, Panama and Navis. You can still have foreign bank accounts while living in Greece, and you can look to see if you can get a second citizenship somewhere. Now, the easiest is usually if you can get it via descent or marriage, right? So check your family tree, go up there, make some research. If you can find anyone, grandparent, great-grandparent from somewhere else, that's usually going to be the cheapest, fastest way for another citizenship. Or if you're married to someone that has a different citizenship, that can also make the timeline faster. Or otherwise, considering nomadism that you're not going to actually move, There's residency and citizenship by investment, then over 6 figures, or even birth tourism if you're considering to have a kid. Very popular in my country nowadays, Brazil. 1-year residency there if you have a baby, and you can claim the citizenship. So there are still many things you can do even if you're not actually moving or you already have a fixed place where you want to stay. In terms of how to choose a flag, again, choices are individual, so there's no universal best. But I will say, again, don't reject countries just because of prejudice, right? This is a really important part. For example, Paraguay. A lot of people are like, where is Paraguay? You can't even place it on a map. But when you look at the technicals of how the residency works, then it convinces a lot of people, because for nomads, it's very easy, right? Or even, for example, Greece, right? Some people that are not from here might think that Greece is, it's a tax hell because the tax rates go up to 40%. But then you look and, wait, there's a tax break for nomads. And there's a tax break for dividends. And there is a flat tax as well. So, there's actually, many different ways in which Greece could be a low-tax destination if you fit one of those groups. And same thing for Portugal, same thing for Italy, same thing for Spain. Like, if you just look, that's a tax hell, I'm not even going to consider that. Well, maybe you're missing out. Also, always good to have a plan B and plan C. So like, if you have a country where I think that would be my plan B or so on, and then that country changes and then you don't have another plan. So Portugal, for example, recently heavily restricted their non-habitual resident program. Before, it used to be basically any profession could get it. Nowadays, you really need a Portuguese job or a Portuguese company. So, now that's probably not going to be the plan B for everyone, so I need to think of what's the next country. So you have to keep on the loop. And also, try not to focus just on where the country is right now, but also where it's going to. Right? I think that's really important, particularly when we're thinking about things on the long term, like citizenships, etc. Like if you see a country that is on the up and up, then, might make sense to at least plant something here so that I can later reap the fruits. For example, doing the example of Paraguay again, now they're negotiating with the US to have visa-free access to the United States, right? So, they were friendly with the US for many years now and have been growing, so eventually it leads in that direction. So it's good to also analyze the long-term trends. And here just listing a few different criteria that you can consider when making this, but really the weighting here is always on you, how much you value each of these. Now, quickly before we finish, I'm just going to give some setup examples. I think the time is already short. Me, Francisco, I'm Brazilian, also Austrian from the descent side. I have residence in Paraguay for the taxes, in Colombia just because I enjoy it, but I'm not paying my taxes there. SETI is incorporated as a US LLC. Since I don't have employees, work being done in the United States, or a permanent office there, I have no tax. This flows to my personal tax residency, and Paraguay doesn't tax foreign sourced income. So 0 tax on both ends, and then bank accounts in many different countries. Let's say you're a nomadic programmer, or even a marketer, or a consultant, or any kind of service provider, and I don't know, you're German, or you're European in general. Well, then, if you can do your tax exit without having to get a new residence, you could stay without residency for a while. And then, let's say, since you don't want a US entity, you want something closer to Europe, the English LLP can work just the same. If you're not a UK citizen, don't have local income, don't have local work, that also can be fully passed through and no tax. And then you use, WISE for that entity and UK account at a personal level. Let's say you're an immigrant couple from Argentina. So you don't have an EU pass, but you really like Europe. You want to be in Europe longer. So what can you do? Well, Spain, for example, is very popular nowadays for the citizenship, because for all Latinos, you can get citizenship in just 2 years. So you have to look at these countries' laws, and often there's some exceptions for particular groups. So here, not only Latinos, but also descendants of Sephardic Jews can get the citizenship in just 2 years. So then they move to Spain, get the citizenship, and once they get the citizenship, then they move to their end destination, the country that they really wanted all along, which is, let's say, Prague in the Czech Republic, and they use the self-employed regime there, which is also pretty good overall. And lastly, let's say you're an entrepreneur, big guy. You have your family, you're not looking to move now, you still have to stay in your home country, but you already want to make some international plans. So you buy a Vanuatu citizenship, that's a Pacific passport that you can buy with donation. Then you get a golden visa in Greece, so you can secure your EU access. You buy a property here and you have permanent residency in the EU. You open a holding company in Nevis to protect your assets, and then you bank in Switzerland and Uruguay. So as you can see, setups for all different kinds of scenarios, nomadic, moving, or not. I'm going to skip over this slide. Sorry, we're out of time. But my main message for you is really, it may sound complicated, and it may be complicated, but it's not that hard, right? There's something that can be done to already diversify yourself in basically every different life context. And if you want to learn more, then we also are giving out a free ebook on flag theory, 24 pages, Heracles, correct me if I'm wrong, basically going through all of these concepts in a more extended fashion so you can learn, and then if you also have any questions, if you need any help later, then you can reach out to me, to my team. This is our social media, emails, WhatsApp, very popular in Brazil, and our website, and then you can get in touch. My name is Francisco Litvay, and thank you very much. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Let's hear it again for Francisco Litvay. Obrigado. Everyone say obrigado.
De nada.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Francisco. You can hear me, right? Okay. So, what happens if you go to a country and you live there on purpose or by mistake 7 months?
Okay, so we have to check the level of scrutiny of that particular country, right? I know nomadic friends who, for example, during the pandemic, they went to Brazil for a whole year, and then they left, and they never got a tax bill, right? But I also know people who went over by a little in Colombia, and they got an email from the tax office. So it really depends on a few things. Number one, do you actually have any kind of residence or permit in the country linking you to that country? How strict is the country in enforcement? So, for example, I wouldn't play that game with Germany, but maybe I would play that game with a African nation or Latin American one. Third, also, most importantly here is the matter of money, right? How are they going to find out about your income? A lot of countries have the income tax-free